Hey guys, it's Tessa. So, today we are doing another one of my knitting podcasts, and this time I'm knitting. So, I thought it would be fun not only to talk about a pattern that I literally can't stop making, but also I think it would be fun to talk about mohair and my feelings towards it, because I think I've mentioned a few different times that I don't love mohair. But I've also been working with mohair from a different brand recently, and I think I kind of love it. I don't know, I'm conflicted. Anyway, to start, I figured I would talk about the Point Edward mitts by Fairlight Fibers. This is a free pattern on Ravelry. And essentially, these mitts are fingerless or fold over gloves, or also known as like fold over mitts, or convertible mitts. But basically, I have made two pairs at this point. Made one with mohair, one without. This pair, the one without, is being given to my best friend. She gets cold really easy, so she wears mitts in the winter. So I figured I'd make her a nice pair. So she is getting those for her birthday. It's in October. And for myself, I made this pair, which is made with Malabrigo Rio number 48 glitter and Le Petit Knit. Or hold on. And then with Le Petit Silk and Mohair. I have a label for this one. I have a label for the other one on another skein of yarn, but I don't feel like getting it down. This is the Beaches and Bushes? Bitches and Bushes? Bitches and Bunches? I don't know. I don't speak another language. And yeah. But this is 30% mulberry silk and 70% super kid mohair, and it's made in Italy. This color is the dark gold. So let me show you here's what the mitts look like themselves with the mohair added. But let me show you the yarns themselves. So this is the Malabrigo Rio. It's a little more yellowy on camera. It's definitely much more of like a orangey gray brown combo. Also, I'm still sick, so I might have a cough every once in a while. And then this is the dark gold mohair. I think it's lovely. The camera can't really focus on it, unfortunately. But I have those little bits left currently. It takes about like 200 grams or so. Not 200 grams, 200 yards or so of a Malabrigo. I think I used roughly the same amount for both pairs of mitts. It's essentially a made to measure a little bit. You use a standard number of stitches, and then everything else is like repeat this pattern up to X number of inches or wherever you feel best kind of thing. So it's a little bit in the air for some of it, which I think is kind of nice actually. Additionally, I should note that the pattern initially asks for a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter needles. I ended up using a 4 millimeter the needles, the double points. Okay, boom, there we go. So I ended up using 4 millimeter double pointed needles for all four mitts, so both pairs. My gauge was a little bit under still, even with the stitch increase. I think it's because the Malabrigo Rio might be a little bit more, like a little bit thinner maybe than what the pattern calls for. And essentially, it starts with twisted ribbing, then it goes into normal knitting or normal stockinette, then it goes back into twisted ribbing. Essentially, one of the really cool things I think about this pattern is you can take these. So I will typically wear them like this probably, but you can also just flip it up and everything's covered. I guess in theory you could create like a seam here if you wanted to, that you just like pull so it closes it off. That's up to you a little bit, but you can see really well the twisted rib here when it's standing up like this. And then when you have it folded over, you could do a double twisted rib. I hate twisted rib passionately, so I will never be doing a double twisted rib. But here's what it looks like with it folded over now. You can see the stitches are quite defined. This cuff as well is also done in twisted rib, but I guess you could change that if you wanted to. And that is it. It also uses, I think it's called an insert, a thumb insert stitch or increases. I don't know exactly what it's called, but essentially you are inserting the increases as you move your way up, and that creates a decent amount of shaping for the thumb hole. Overall, I think this pattern's very easy, and I could honestly say it's probably a beginner pattern, other than the twisted rib portion. It works out pretty quickly. It's probably for me about 4 to 4.5 hours per mitt. so that's roughly 9 hours at most to 10 hours. So it goes by pretty quickly. It's a project I was using for like post-work relaxation before I kind of get into my work for the day, or work as in my knitting or crocheting for the day. And overall, again, I just think this pattern is really nice. It's very detailed and very helpful. Now on to the meat and potatoes of this video, which is mohair, and my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on that. So, as most of you know, or some of you know, the only mohair I have used previously is the Drops Kid Silk mohair, and I used it in both black and light gray. And then this mohair is Le Petit, and it is in the dark gold color. Originally, I was thinking of using that black yarn or the black mohair and holding it with the Malabrigo Rio for the mitt pair for me. But as some of you know, I also made the halibut sweater, and I used Drops Flora, which is a light DK or light 3, and I held that double with some mohair. And I didn't love the way the mohair felt against my skin. I thought it was a sensory nightmare. I could kind of get used to it if I wore a tank top underneath, but I shouldn't have, I don't know, it's a whole thing. I also think I might have shot myself in the foot because I did end up partially blow drying the sweater because it just wasn't drying, and I was starting to get worried about like mold and mildew with how long it had been drying. I think it was like drying for like 4 days before I finally whipped out the hairdryer to dry it faster. It was also my first large-scale blocking project, so I guess I might have also just not estimated the proper amount of time it would take to block. But anywho, so I've used 2 different brands of mohair now, and I think they're 2 slightly different makeups as well. Like I mentioned for the Le Petite, it's mulberry silk and super kid mohair, while I think the other one is just a silk and mohair and kid silk. So I'm not 100% sure. I just also don't know a lot of like yarn makeups very well either. I tend to use what I call fancy yarn, which is just like natural fiber usually, so cotton or wool. Usually it's superwash or non-superwash. Like that's really all I use fancy yarn wise. I tend not to like alpaca. I think alpaca is a lot scratchier personally than wool is, or at least in the combinations of alpaca to wool mixes I've used. I don't like the alpaca because of how itchy it is. The top I made a couple videos ago, or several videos ago at this point, and the Drops Flora that I used for the halibut sweater both have a 65% alpaca, 35% sheep's wool combo. And a lot of people I saw were saying that alpaca is softer than wool, I just don't agree. Anyway, that's not the point of this video. Mohair. I think I still firmly think that mohair is not for me when it comes to larger body projects. Especially over the last handful of years, I've become more sensitive to fibers, or more like acutely aware of how they feel when I'm wearing them. And I think with these mitts, because our hands shed constantly, my skin isn't getting used to certain feelings. And so if I wear like a entirely mohair sweater, that's obviously gonna just irritate the hell out of me because I'm just gonna be thinking about how it feels constantly, and that'll drive me nuts. So I do think mohair is a nice project for me, at least when it comes to mitts. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a nice project as well for hats or socks. Or it'd be a nice project for hats or socks as well. Hats, I think I might still be a little sensitive to it personally, but still, I think it could be a fun use of mohair for me, and probably one of the only practical uses for me when it comes to mohair. I do love making mitts though. If you saw my Maze Mitts video where I followed that pattern, I think at that time I have 4 pairs of mitts technically. One is my husband's, while the other 3 are mine. Or the other 2 are mine. I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 at that time. But the point is, tons of mitts. I really like making mitts. They're like my version of making socks. Some people really love making socks, and that's almost exclusively what they make. I just really love making mitts because I think they're fun. So for mohair, I'd say it's a plus for mitts/gloves, and a very much not a pleasant feeling for larger body projects. I am interested in testing different kinds of mohair. I think the Drops Kid Silk mohair, the real problem I have with that one is the black is so much rougher than the light gray, and I'm not 100% sure why this is. Maybe because the light gray doesn't go through as much of like a dyeing process, maybe. Once again, I don't know a lot about different types of fibers, so I don't even know if that really makes any sense, but that's the only thing I could think of, because I used the light gray mohair held with a strand of Flora for the Widow's Web shawl I made, and that thing is super soft. I can't really wear it because it's just too warm, but it's so beautiful. It's super soft, and I also love the color it dyed too. So I really like that. But then again, I go and feel the Drops Kid Silk in black, and it's so rough. Like, the texture itself is rough. I don't really know how else to explain it other than that. And so I think if I did use that to make these mitts, I still wouldn't like Mohair. I think the Le Petit is definitely a much softer, and like, it's just more feelable. Like, when I run my fingers across it, it feels smooth and not coarse in my hand. So I think that's really nice as well. And working with it, honestly, was pretty good. When I did the halibut sweater, I ended up getting what I call like rope burn, but like yarn rope burn, so yarn burn, because of where the yarn sits on my finger. So I ended up getting that with the halibut sweater, but that also could have just been because I was working on that thing for like 20 days, 26 days and completed it. So it could just be because I was being a little crazy. But regardless of that, I do think that this worked out much nicer. It wasn't so fighty. I'd also like to say that for the Drops Kid Silk Mohair, I don't even know if that's the correct name. I don't have any labels for it anymore. But for the Drops Kid Silk Mohair, I do feel that like it shed so much. Like, even the light gray shed so much. It was quite ridiculous. So like you see for this dark gold here, like I've wound it on my yarn winder, so it, it's kind of wound up now. It's nice. When I tried to do that with the Drops version, oh my gosh, fighting for my life to not inhale fibers. It was quite ridiculous and very frustrating. Like, I think it somehow got into my sealed cup, which was crazy. But when it came to this, I did not notice hardly any shedding, if any at all. Like, even when I blocked these mitts, I didn't notice any shedding really. So I do think that this brand does have less shedding factors. I will say though, if we're really looking at this from an all factors perspective, this Le Petit skein, which was 25 grams at 230 yards, I think roughly the mohair, Kid Silk Mohair from Drops is roughly around the same yardage and grammage. I will say that Drops does have the bag on the pricing. So for the Drops Kid Silk, I believe it was either $4.99 or $5.99, while one skein of this was $13.99. So basically about double the price plus a little bit for this better mohair, and honestly I think it's worth it. Just from these two brands alone, I think it's better to spend a little extra. I believe the Malabrigo Rigo is either currently $15.50 or $16.50 a skein. So that's also a contributing factor. I personally don't think I'd ever use mohair just as is. I think it would just drive me crazy, honestly. But yeah, overall, I would say if you ever want to try mohair and you really want to give it a shot, try the Le Petit. I really think it's a nice mohair. It's smooth. And like I said, I'm hypersensitive to materials, or I can be. And alpaca usually gets me. The mohair, the black mohair from Drops gets me. Things like that all irritate me so far. But this, nothing. My husband, who's even more sensitive to things than I am, also didn't mind it. So if that tells you anything, that's what I recommend. And if you do choose to use mohair for the first time, I'd say do something smaller, like these mitts projects. Worst case scenario, you give them to somebody else and go from there. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't think I mentioned this actually before I log off. So what I'm working on here is a bottom up to be steeked striped cardigan. Oh, and it's super wash. So I'm really trying some shit, okay? I don't know what I am on about recently, but every time I've wanted to do something knitting wise, I've been wanting to try something different, just to see if I like doing it. And I think I enjoy this process a lot so far. The only thing I don't really love is knowing that I will have to like super secure this essentially so that the superwash doesn't just separate, because as some of you may know, and me, baby knitter, now knows, superwash is not ideal for steeked projects because it doesn't have the ability to felt easily. So a lot of the times on steeked projects, you can just take a felting needle and just jam that puppy into this panel a million times, and everything stays perfectly secure with no problems, issues, or anything like that. But when it comes to superwash like this, it's actually treated so that it doesn't felt easily. But I don't know the science behind it. Doesn't really matter. That's the project I'm working on today. Pretty soon I'm going to be able to split for the sleeves, or not split for the sleeves, but essentially block out the sections for the sleeves. So that will be really exciting. I'm loving the way this is turning out, and if you want to see more of this project, let me know, because I'm more than happy to talk about it or show you guys everything about it. Yeah, so that is it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and if you do have any opinions on mohair that I did not talk about, or if you have questions about the mohair reviews or anything like that, leave them below. And please, if you want to see more of me, subscribe. Alright, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!